Welcome back, my friends. Today's movie tells the story of a wife who begins to suspect her husband is cheating on her, so she forces him to kill his mistress himself. But will he go through with it? Let's find out. The movie begins with Chris and his wife Nora asleep around 4 a.m., when Chris receives a message on his phone. Both of them wake up, and Nora asks who would be texting him at such a late hour. Chris tells her it's a message from work, but she doesn't believe him. She insists there's no job that would message at that time of night. Chris keeps claiming it's work, but Nora starts getting suspicious and thinks he might be cheating on her. She asks him to hand over the phone so she can see the message, but he refuses and tells her she should trust him more than that. She keeps pushing and tries to grab the phone by force. Chris gets really angry, throws the phone away, and ends up breaking it. Neither of them gets to see the message. The next day, they're having breakfast with their son, Johan. He suffers from a condition that affects his legs, so he can't walk without crutches. Chris and Nora are doing everything they can to help him walk normally again. Nora apologizes for what happened the night before, saying she really should trust Chris more. Chris also apologizes for getting into a fight with her and assures her he's not cheating. To make it up to him, she offers to get his phone fixed, but he refuses and says he was already planning to buy a new one anyway, so there's no need. Nora leaves with their son to drop him off at school, and Chris heads to work. When he gets there, he meets his coworker Zinnia, and from the way they look at each other, it's clear something's going on. They head off to talk privately, and we find out that Chris actually is cheating on Nora with Zinnia. We also learn that the message from earlier that morning was from Zinnia. She had told him she couldn't keep going like this, and that he needed to decide whether he was going to stay with his wife and son or be with her. Chris explains that he didn't see the message, which is why he hasn't made a decision yet. Zinnia gets upset that he hadn't even seen her message and tells him he needs to decide immediately. Chris says that once his son recovers and can walk on his own, he'll leave his wife and be with her because he loves her. But Zinnia says she's heard that line too many times, and she's not going to wait until his son gets better. She tells him not to talk to her or come near her again until he leaves his wife, and then she walks away. At the same time, Nora is looking through Chris's laptop, checking his photo albums. By chance, she finds some pictures of Chris and Zinnia, and the way they're looking at each other makes her uncomfortable. When she sees that Zinnia is single, her suspicion grows stronger. She starts to believe her husband might be cheating with this woman and decides to keep a closer eye on him so she doesn't lose him. Later, when Chris gets home, Nora gets herself ready and tries to get close to him. But he brushes her off completely, saying he needs to take a quick shower because he has to get ready for the party. When the time for the party comes, Chris and Nora get dressed and head out together. At the event, Chris is being honored, and while he's getting all the attention, Nora keeps watching Zinnia and Chris closely. She's clearly upset, until she sees the two of them slipping into an empty office together. She follows them and sees her husband cheating on her. Zinnia notices that Nora caught them, but Chris doesn't realize it. After the party, Chris and Nora return home. He notices that she looks different, and keeps asking her what's wrong, but she stays silent. When he pushes, she tells him she's just tired. The next day, Chris decides to ask Nora for a divorce. He's tired of their life together, and Zinnia has been pressuring him nonstop. So, he sits down with Nora, tries to ease into the conversation, and tells her that he isn't happy in their marriage, and she probably isn't either, and that maybe it's better if they both move on. But Nora cuts him off and won't let him finish. She tells him she saw him cheating on her the night before. She reminds him how she gave up her successful career as a concert pianist for him, and to take care of Johan, and that after everything, he betrayed her. Chris tells her she can go back to her music career after the divorce, maybe start teaching again. But she tells him she's too old now, and it's been too long since she played. It's too late for her to return to that life. Then she threatens him, if he divorces her, she'll go to the police. She knows about the shady deals he's done at work, and if she reports him, he'll be sent to prison for a long time. She leaves, and Chris heads to work. At the office, he tells Zinnia that he confessed everything to his wife and that they'll be separating soon, then they can get married. Zinnia is thrilled and hugs him. She tells him her mom and her boyfriend are coming into town today, and she wants Chris to meet them both. Chris agrees. After that, Chris goes to meet one of Nora's friends, hoping she can help convince Nora to divorce him peacefully without reporting him to the police. But the surprise is that her friend advises him not to divorce Nora, unless he's sure he can defend himself. She explains that before Nora married Chris, she was in a perfect love story with another guy. But one day, that guy broke up with her for another girl. Not long after, he fell from a high cliff and died instantly. Authorities investigated and ruled it a suicide, but all of Nora's friends, and the guy's friends, were convinced she was behind it. Apparently, the guy was with the new girl on the cliff, and she felt like someone was watching them. She claimed she caught a glimpse of Nora spying on them, but wasn't 100% sure. Then the guy walked off a bit to see if someone was really there, and that's when someone attacked and pushed him. Still, the police couldn't prove anything because Nora had an alibi. She was playing piano at a club during the time of the incident. Despite that, people close to her believed she was responsible. Chris sees this as an opportunity to use that story against her, just like she has something to use against him. Now they're even. He leaves and spends the whole day with Zinnia and her family. He has no idea that Nora has been watching him the whole time. When he gets home, he's shocked to find that Nora has packed his clothes and is kicking him out of the house. He tries to throw the cliff story in her face, but she completely denies it and goes even harder on him. She threatens him, either he leaves Zinnia for good, or she'll go to the police. Chris ends up calling Zinnia to tell her it's over, but he hesitates, hangs up, and can't go through with it. He tells himself he loves Zinnia. This makes Nora furious. She throws all his stuff outside and tells him never to come back. Chris takes the white car, the one used in the crime, and gets rid of it completely. Then he heads straight to work so all the employees can see he was there, giving him a solid alibi for the time of the murder. Later, he comes back home and sits with his son, feeling a deep sense of guilt. His conscience is eating away at him. He heads to the shower, visibly shaken, crying under the water. But when he comes out, he finds Nora standing behind him. She's completely fine, not a single scratch. He's in total shock and can't believe what he's seeing. Nervously, he tells her he changed his mind about the divorce and broke things off with Zinnia. He wants to stay with her. He's shaking and terrified as he speaks. Suddenly, their son comes in to check on his mom. He tells her she's not running in the woods anymore, just on a different route now. That's when Chris realizes the woman he attacked in the woods wasn't Nora. He killed the wrong woman. Later, he finds out the woman had 3 young children. Chris breaks down, overwhelmed by guilt and remorse. He sits with Nora again and notices that she's forgiven him and is willing to get back together. Days pass. Then one day, during Johan's graduation party, 2 police officers show up at the house. They're following up on leads about the murder that happened in the nearby woods. Of course, Chris denies knowing anything. He tells them he was at work at the time. But once the officers leave, Nora tells him he usually finishes work earlier than the time the cop mentioned. Chris admits he was with Zinnia that day, ending things with her, but didn't want to say anything to the cops to keep Zinnia out of trouble. Nora understands and stays quiet. The next day, she asks Chris to talk privately. When they're alone, she shows him surveillance footage from a gas station. She explains that she went to the car wash where she normally gets her car cleaned. She was sure her card still had money on it, but the cashier told her it was empty. That's when she asked to see the security footage, and saw Chris using her card to wash a white car. The car matched the exact description police gave of the vehicle used in the murder. That's when it hits her. Chris is the killer. She also realizes he was trying to kill her, not the woman who died. Nora breaks down crying and tells him to stay away from her forever. She tries to call the police, but he grabs the phone from her. She runs to her car, still in shock that he tried to murder her. She drives off and leaves him behind. After walking for a while, Chris is surprised to see the police arriving at his house. He immediately thinks that Nora reported him. He goes outside to talk to them, looking extremely nervous and shaken. But suddenly, her husband comes back from work and had just seen the car's license plate, nothing more. So the officers ask Chris about the license plate, and he pretends not to remember exactly. He gives them a random number, but the police are suspicious because he's clearly anxious and uneasy. Later that night, he meets up with Nora at a restaurant after she sends him a message asking to see him. At the restaurant, Nora tells him she's willing to forgive him and won't report him to the police. In fact, she even offers to take him back to live with her and their son, but only under one condition: he has to go through with what he intended to do to Zina and finish her off. She says if he does that, their life will go back to normal, better than before, and everything will be okay. At first, Chris gets angry and refuses. But in the end, he gives in and agrees. The next day, Nora takes him to a resort and books a couple of nights so they can stay there together. The plan is to make sure everyone at the hotel sees them, so that the resort staff and other guests can be their alibi. When night falls, Chris quietly sneaks out of the resort without anyone noticing and heads to Zina's house. He spends time with her and acts totally normal until he's able to get close enough to kill her. But just moments before doing it, he changes his mind and decides not to go through with it. Instead, he spends the night with her. Suddenly, Nora bursts into the place and kills Zina herself. She had been sure Chris wouldn't be able to do it because he loved Zina. Days go by, and the police start a major search across the city for Zina. To them, she's missing. There's no sign of her or even her body. 2 detectives are assigned to investigate Chris because he was the last person to contact her by phone. But Nora and Chris use their resort stay as their alibi. They both deny knowing anything about Zina's disappearance. Even though the detectives remain suspicious, they don't have any proof, just hunches. Meanwhile, Chris and Nora had hidden Zina's body in a place no one would expect, an old wooden cabin they planned to burn during a party with friends. Once the cabin is set on fire, there would be no trace of Zina's body, and they'd be free of it for good. The night of the party comes, and just as Chris is about to set the cabin on fire, the police show up, with sniffer dogs. The dogs start moving toward the cabin, getting very close. They're just seconds away from discovering the body when Chris quickly lights the cabin on fire and saves the situation. He goes back to stand next to his wife, watching the cabin burn. He had truly loved Zina with all his heart. He had been ready to give up everything for her, even to kill his own wife, the mother of his son, just to be with her. And now, here he is, watching her body burn in flames, knowing he's the one who lit the fire. After all this, Chris and Nora sell their house and move to a new city, disappearing forever. And that's how the movie ends. If you enjoyed the film, don't forget to like the video, drop a comment to share your thoughts, and make sure to subscribe to the channel.